You're listening to the Cool CLE Show.
I'm Jay, host of the Cool CLE Show, brought to you by CoolCleveland.com, putting you in touch with cool events, people, news, and neighborhoods in the Cleveland region. In 2012, the Natural Resources Defense Council published a groundbreaking report that revealed that up to 40% of food in the United States goes uneaten. That's on average 400 pounds of food per person every year. Not only is that responsible, they say it's very expensive as well. Growing, processing, transporting, and disposing that uneaten food has an annual estimated cost of over $218 billion, costing each household of four around an average of $1,800 a year. On this episode, we're talking to Daniel Brown, co-founder of Rust Belt Riders, an innovative startup right here in Cleveland that is tackling our city's food waste one compost heap at a time. We'll hear from him on how you can make changes to reduce food waste at home and details of the events they put on to help citizens learn about composting and gardening, like tomato trellising on June 8th, Korean farming on July 13th, and its very popular Composting 101 event on August 10th. But first, here's some more events I think should be on your calendar. Well, we are just days away from Cleveland exploding with concerts and food fairs and festival. Edgewater Live kicks off May 30th and then continues through to August 1st with performances scheduled from Cleveland's Breakfast Club, Carlos Jones, Front Porch Lights, among others. And then, of course, the day after kicks off the Euclid Beach Live series of concerts, continuing weekly until August 2nd. The weekend of May 31st is also the start of the Little Italy Art Walk. You've got the Hessler Street Fair celebrating its 50th anniversary this year on June 1st and 2nd. This year's lineup includes Austin Walking Cane, Becky Boyd, Daddy Longlegs Revival, Armstrong Bearcat, so many more. The University Circle comes alive with color and music and art for all ages on June 8th for Parade the Circle. And then on June 9th, you've got the Taste of Lakewood with live music, beer and wine, and of course food from some of the best Lakewoods restaurants, eateries, and caterers. The Hoolie at Cam's Quarters is on June 15th. That's a one-day outdoor free admission festival featuring live music, entertainment, food, Irish dancers, handmade arts, crafts, and gifts. Also on the same day, you've got the Larchmere Porch Fest, 30 bands, 30 porches. So much to enjoy as the start of summer. We've now got some new music from Kent duo Sexy Pig Divas. This is Tofu Tuna. Well, we all know that things like food wastage is causing us a really big problem economically and environmentally. And there's a really cool local organization that's trying to do something about that here in Cleveland. It's the Rust Belt Riders. And we've got Daniel Brown, one of the co-founders, with us. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So how bad is this food wastage thing?
It's pretty bad, but the good news is there's lots of disparate efforts that are sort of coming together in a pretty beautiful way to try and make some headway on changing a lot of the headlines that food waste is getting. And so we're trying to play a small part in helping to advance that.
What exactly does something like food wastage do to our environment to start?
Yeah. So, there's some numbers that put the wastage in the United States right around 40%. So 40% of all food that's grown in the United States ends up not being consumed and being thrown away. And more often than not, when food's thrown away, it heads to landfills, and landfills, unlike your compost pile, tend not to have access to oxygen. And oxygen is really the thing that is one of the main ingredients that helps food decompose naturally. And so when food lacks access to oxygen, or any organic material lacks access to oxygen, it off-gasses methane. And methane is anywhere from 20 to 25 times more harmful than the gases that come out of your tailpipe. And so the greenhouse gas emissions associated with food entering landfills would put it in the territory of the United States and China's total emissions as countries. So if we're thinking about the ways in which we can influence or minimize our impact on climate change, the thing that I like saying is, you could buy a Tesla, install solar panels, put up a wind turbine, or just compost your banana peel. And so, for people who really want to make a big difference by making simple, minimal changes to their lifestyle and their behaviors, we're trying to make people aware that composting is among the most significant things that you can do to help combat climate change. And it's relatively simple. So,
you've got such it feels like a unique business model. What was the tipping point for you and the rest of your crew, as it were, to start Rust Belt Riders?
Yeah, so it was like late 2013. Michael, my co-founder, and I were working at Spice Kitchen and Bar. Years earlier, we had started a community garden at East 40th and St. Clair. And lo and behold, Detroit Shoreways Community Development Organization had commissioned a report on a feasibility study of what would it look like if we as a community started composting. And so our neighbor just mentioned this report in passing, and we had learned that it just, I guess, had started to collect dust. And so we dusted it off, looked at it, and we were like, wow, there's like a pretty massive opportunity here. And as community gardeners, one of the things we need most foundationally is healthy soil in which to grow our vegetables and herbs. And then, each night we were going into this restaurant that was an amazing farm to table restaurant full of consumers really eager to know where their food was coming from, but paid no mind or attention to the waste that occurred through the preparation of those meals. And so we sought to basically connect those things and to develop a business that viewed what others may have perceived as a waste stream as a potential input stream to something that we could make something of substantial value out of. And so we started collecting food scraps from restaurants that we were working at and our friends were working at, and cafes that we liked drinking coffee at, and collecting that material and sourcing it to the gardens that we were involved with, that our friends were involved with, and sought to really commit ourselves to learning as much as we could about compost. So, I don't have a particularly green thumb, but I know that if I'm planting my plants in something that is full of life and nutrients, I'm going to have a far better chance at having success as a gardener. And so that's sort of the corner that we carved out. And and have been working on improving and iterating on ever since.
And you're growing so well. You've got a number of restaurants in the area, a lot of public entertainment venues here in town, all the museums and things like that are contributing. And recently I read your blog where you sort of like really flipped it to say, look, you don't have to be a restaurant and all this other stuff. You're working now with businesses, firms, and I think you highlighted an architectural firm of all things, that are now, one of your clients. So, so sitting here thinking, well, I don't really waste a lot of food, but I don't think I do, but maybe if I started, paying attention to it, I might be a bit surprised. What can people do, to start making a little bit of a difference in their own homes and their own businesses and communities?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, right? I mean, I think first and foremost, I think that generally people think that you need to be a restaurant or a cafeteria to work with us, but wherever anyone is eating, there is the opportunity to collect and divert material that otherwise would go to the landfill. So if you think about, at your own home, if you drink coffee, you've got coffee grounds and a coffee filter. Where's that going? Can it be composted? It can, right? And then on the other side of things, right? I don't know the last time I ate a banana peel, but the fruit itself is delicious, and so just your daily activity. And I think that for me, I like cooking at home, and so the more sort of from scratch cooking that you do, you realize that like. There's inevitably waste through that process. So you peel onions, you might peel potatoes, carrot tops, you can make cool carrot top pesto out of it, but that's not everybody's cup of tea. And so I think that, for me, it was becoming aware about the magnitude and scale of food waste that you start to just sort of look at things a little bit differently. And, unlike recycling, which may change based on changes in policies, the things that are compostable today will be compostable tomorrow, will be compostable 100 years from now. And so I think that for the businesses and organizations that we work with, if anybody's eating lunch there, we can work with them. And then as we look to the future, we're really eagerly looking forward to deploying residential service. So for those among us who might live in an apartment building or might have a yard but don't know or the first thing about composting, we're planning to provide those individuals or households with bins to simply segment or separate their compostable items from their recycling or landfilling items. And then just like you put out your trash on garbage day, you'd put out your Rust Belt Riders bin and we'd come by to pick it up, and we'll exchange your full bin for a clean empty one, and periodically you can get compost back. And so that's sort of the next big venture for us in terms of the collections end, is that we've been offering this service to businesses and organizations in our region. And I think that we've heard loud and clear from many residents that this is something that they would just as much like to participate in. And so we're working on that.
Yeah. And you've got some details on your website about that. And the other thing that's really popular that you guys do is you do these workshops for not just about composting, but gardening. You've got one coming up in July 13th, Intro to Korean Natural Farming. What is that?
Yeah, so Korean natural farming, it was largely popularized in Korea, but put simply, it's natural farming. So it's looking at different biological processes that are taking place within nature. So Nathan, who's our director of soil, likes to point out that you as you look at a forest, right, a tree falls, you don't see an abundance of lumber stacking up endlessly, right? There are natural processes that are decomposing and breaking down organic matter all around us. And what Korean natural farming does is try and sort of hijack those processes and those systems into sort of tactile approaches or inoculants that can can help to improve water retention or make more minerals and nutrients more readily available to plant roots, so that you can get away from the need for artificial fertilizers and chemicals, and really strengthen your plants without using any chemicals or additives. It's literally taking best practices from nature, and sort of having fun by making like recipes and batches and sort of emulsions that are readily available to most everyone, and they're far better alternatives to the Roundups and the Miracle Grows of the world, because they're borrowing a playbook from nature rather than leftover chemical industrial supplies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that stuff you read if you've had children or pets or anything like that, my husband and I garden, we try to steer away from those things because it's just scary when you read that. Oh my gosh, I love you guys. You guys are doing great work. Rust Belt Writers, check them out on their website, rustbeltwriters.com. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you got a great blog on your website. Check out their workshops. They've got tomato trellising and maintenance on June 8th. Of course, that Korean natural farming, fascinating, July 13th. And of course, your very popular Composting 101 on August 10th. Thanks so much, Daniel, for joining us and talking to us about food waste, and wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we've got more new music for you from Mr. Carnivore's latest album, Blue Light. It's a collection of songs written by one of the founding members that was kept awake by the effects of staring at a computer screen all day, thus Blue Light. This is the single off the album. It's called Cello.
Commit to the system. Commit to the system. System to the system.
Hello on the ceiling. I was just going through this yearbook from my school. It made me see colors, black and white, black and white, and black and blue. Just like you used to. Give it to me, give it to me, give me my heart, babe. Give it to me, give it to me, give me my heart, babe. Come down from the ceiling. You can't keep hiding from this world inside my room. It made me see colors, black and white, black and white, black and blue. Just like you used to. Give it to me, give it to me, give me my heart, babe. Give it to me, give it to me, give me my heart, babe. Give it to me, give it to me, give me my heart, babe. Give it to me. And I'll be alright, I'll be just fine singing the same old song and dance. I'll be alright, I'll be singing, I'm just fine singing the same old story. It goes, oh
that's it for this week. Big thanks to Daniel Brown of Rust Belt Riders for coming on the show to talk about their business and food waste in our city. They are doing some great things. Check them out, read their very enlightening blogs, and maybe attend one of their events. And also thank you to the Sexy Pig Divas and Mr. Carnivore for the tunage. You've been listening to the Cool CLE Show, brought to you by CoolCleveland.com. Have a good one.